more problems when you come on.
All right. Genesis study. The verse that we left off in Genesis was Genesis chapter 8, verse 11. So we're gonna.
You can leave it.
Okay, we could. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read these verses from verse 11 to verse 22, and then we're gonna start in chapter 9. Can I count on anyone to let me pre find somebody right now? Anybody want to read the next 10 verses in Genesis 9?
I read it.
Oh, who's that, Wes?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Oh, okay. All right, so good. So that way we can kind of flow into the next one. All right, so Genesis chapter 8, we're going to start from verse 11. And it says, "And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off, and Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again to him any more. And it came to pass that the 601st year, so it's 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, 27th day, was the earth dried. And Elohim spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth from the ark, you and your wife and your sons wives with you. Bring forth with you every living thing that is with you, of all flesh, both fowl, cattle, creeping thing that creeps, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth." Sounds familiar. "And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wives, and his sons' wives with him, and every beast, every creeping thing, every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kind, went out of the ark. And Noah built an altar unto Yah, and took of every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar." So, I'll explain. Say it later. Verse 21 and 22. "And Yah smelled a sweet fragrance, and Yah said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart was evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done, while the earth remain, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease." So before I mention my opinion, does anybody want to point out anything that just stuck out to them in these verses? All right, my wife want to come and say it. She's talking about what verse is that?
The last one you said
21?
Sweet smelling savor.
Shabbat Shalom. The last verse, second to last verse, where it says that Yah smelled a sweet smelling savor, it reminded me of 2 Corinthians 2:15, where it says that we are that sweet smelling savor. Let me read it. It says, "For we are fragrance of Messiah to Elohim, among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing."
I like that because most people think that like he's smelling like some cooked animals, and he's just like, "Ooh, that smells good." That's not what he's smelling. He's being refreshed by the belief that Noah has. Noah is offering his heart. He's doing what Abel did when Abel offered a more excellent sacrifice of faith in belief of this covenant. Right now, he's offering him a covenant, and when Noah offered back to him, he believed in the covenant of Yah. He believed in the words of Yah, and that was the fragrance. That was the fragrance that he was inhaling, not burnt flesh of animals. You know, we are the fragrance. We give off the fragrance to Yah that he breathes in by faith. If we are offering these perfect, blemishless lambs with a wicked heart, he's going to look at it like it's disgusting. But when we offer it with faith, he says it's a sweet fragrance. JP, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, because I had noticed here in verse 14, it says the second month. And I was just wondering, is this, I was going to look it up right now to make sure if this was like the first time a calendar was appearing or if not. Because I just thought it was interesting when I heard month, like just talking about calendar, thinking about the calendar, how they were in tune with the calendar already, you know what I mean? And having an understanding of that. But that was it.
Yeah, I was talking on mute. I think it is the first account. Noah's time was the first time that they mentioned dates. I think it was in the last chapter. I think it was in chapter 7 that they started talking about years and things like that. I think with the 40 days, the 120 years. So when he designated 120 years, it seems like that's when things started counting. That's when he started numbering, and but yeah, so this is around this time, during the time of Noah, is when they first start recognizing that there is a timing of months and years and things like that. Not only that, but there's also clean and unclean. Now remember, they wasn't eating animals at this time. So clean and unclean was specifically for offering. Like the clean animals were for offering, the unclean animals were not. So the clean animals wasn't for eating at this time. The clean animals was for offering. It wasn't until, well, we're going to get into that. It wasn't until this time that he actually, suggested to Noah that he eat, animal, but without the blood. So, so yeah, this is when we acknowledge that there has always been a timetable or a time frame set up. We see that in Genesis also, Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, where it says that he created the sun and the moon for days and years and for appointed times. So this is Genesis, and Noah's he's just continuing what was already set up in the book of Genesis. So that was a good observation as well. Sometimes we don't think about the calendar until it gets to feasts. That's when we think about the calendar, but we can clearly see that there was always a method and timetable, so to speak. Anybody else got anything they want to pull out? Brother Rick, then Brother Rod.
All right. Good catch there, Brother JP, because I was on kind of the same thought process. But we're talking about this happened in the first month, which is where we're at right now, and as far as the calendar goes. So it's kind of around the same period of time then, But I found it interesting as I do these Aleph Tavs where they're placed, and there's a few of them throughout this that I want to kind of point out while we're here. And the first one that we find is in Genesis 8:12, where he says, he stayed yet another 7 days and sent forth the Aleph Tav, the dove. So it sounds as though that dove had something to do with the covenant that he was that he had put forth, which didn't return anymore after that. So evidently there's a connection where that maybe begins that covenant that he's re-establishing with man again at this point, because now the dove didn't come back. So now we're getting ready to exit this ark here pretty soon. And then we look at Genesis 8:13, where it's pretty much at the end of this, and it said, it came to pass in the 601st year, or in the first month, and the first day of the month, the waters dried up from the earth, and Noah removed Aleph Tav, the covering of the ark. So again, we see that covenant protection that was removed at this time, as they were beginning to move off of the ark and get into procreating and stuff like that again. And then we have, where's the next one at here? It looks like it's in the same verse your wife spoke of, Genesis 8:21, where it says, Yahuah Aleph Tav smelled a sweet savor. And then it goes on, it says, and Yahuah said in his heart, I will not again curse Aleph Tav, the ground. So he's made a covenant there that he's not going to destroy man that way again. I'll continue on here because there's another one in this one here. He won't curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smote anymore the Aleph Tav, anything living, as I have done. So he's making that promise, that covenant, that he won't destroy us again. And we see that in the placements of these Aleph Tavs once again. It's always in that same sequence where he's dealing with covenant or protection, something to that regards. So I found that very interesting how they're placed once again in this scripture. So that's pretty much all I wanted to point out.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I noticed that when you mentioned it, I noticed that's what he's doing. When he sent the dove came back no more. It was like the beginning of the covenant that he was about to make. And the interesting thing, just to keep in my mind is we have historical. It's like we're developing a historical memorials. Like we can, like it was the first day last week. It was the first day of the first month, right? Like we could have been able, like, oh, this day Noah took the cover off the ark. It's like we actually have historical dates as to what our forefathers did, and we can actually talk about it like they're real. It's not like, oh, in 1865 this happened. Like we can actually say today, the first day of Abib, Noah took we can actually do that. And I just find that so real. Like it makes this our history. It makes it real for us, all the things that Yahuwah has been doing through our people from the beginning, those people of faith from the beginning. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to mention that because that's just so good to keep in mind, because it removes us from all of these other memorials in this world, President's Day and all these days. Like we can actually say today is the day Noah got off the ark. Like that's crazy to me. I don't know. Let me let Rod go. Go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. We have a marked memorial. We have many marked memorials that we can, lay claim to, that supersede, the memorials of this world, right? But it's funny and interesting. I'm gonna use JP's word where that I saw something in the same verse as Keturah and Rick, verse 21. Yahweh says, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Never will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. So the same reason he got rid of man, for his heart being evil continually, he says, I'm going to continue my covenant regardless of his heart. You know what I mean? So right here, he's making provision for us, knowing, someone was talking about recently, does he know? Yes, he knows. He sees, he knows all things, and he kept his covenant with us anyway, even though this was the reason he destroyed everything back in Genesis 6, right? For man's heart. But he says, I'm going to keep the covenant through that. And I wanted to say something else about him keeping the covenant, but I'll wait till we get in chapter 9.
No, I like that perspective. Like he's gonna follow through. Yah is gonna follow through all the way unto the end. He's not gonna interrupt. He's gonna follow through and eliminate sin. So sin is the issue, and he's gonna say, I'm not gonna destroy man. I'm gonna follow through all the way to the end and completely complete my work. You know, that covenant is should be important to us, that he's going to finish what he set out to finish. You know what I mean? Like, especially with us, if he's going to remove sin from us, we have to have that belief he's going to accomplish what he's going to accomplish. Sin is what he's trying to destroy, not man. You know, so I like that you brought that up, that he mentioned it, that he's going to continue even though, you know, but then he gives us provisions. He says that foolishness is bound, because it says the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. And then, you know, we're born in sin. We're carnal from birth. And then it says that in the book of Proverbs, that foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. But then he tells us to train them. He tells us that by the Ruach, we can train our children, and that foolishness can be, you know, removed by the Ruach. You see what I'm saying? So even though this situation or this condition is continuing, he's given us the power to get out of it. You know what I mean? And I, you know, praise Yah for that. Praise Yah for that. Let me let Mike go. Go ahead, Mike. And I think Rick wanted to say something.
Rick had raised his hand. You want to let him go?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
Say that again.
No, okay, so in Genesis 3, well, first off, the flood, because I have a question. The flood was to pretty much purge the earth of sin, right? Because it destroyed all the sin, all the wicked people. The only one left was righteous Noah and his family, right?
Well, to purge the earth from wicked people. You can't if man exists, you can't really remove sin, because sin is in man's flesh. So you can't purge the earth from sin. That's why he says the last enemy of Messiah is sin and death. That's the last enemy that he's going to destroy. So, yeah, but he did from wicked men.
I mean, in the sense of he still removed sin from the earth, and the righteous, or Noah was a righteous man, it says, and I believe he's, you know, saved. He's whatever. There wasn't sin in him as far as his actions, his deeds. He was just like us, even though we're still in sin, but we're still righteous. We're made perfect through Yahusha, is what I'm trying to say.
For Noah himself, he still had 3 sons. Yeah. One of them was,
well, because my understanding is he purged the earth once with the flood. The second time will be with fire. Because I'm reading Genesis 3:17, and it says, unto Adam he said, because thou have hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. And then now here we are after the flood, he's saying, no longer will I curse the ground for man's sake. So it sounds like he cursed the earth because of Adam's sin. Everybody kept sinning, so he kind of purged that out in a sense, and then said no, and started over anew with Noah, righteous Noah and his family, and said, no longer will I curse the earth. So it sounds like that curse in Genesis 9:3 was stopped when he flooded the earth. And then he goes to say, no longer will I do this again for your sake.
Right. That's kind of what I was touching on, because he says, in spite of the way man's heart is, he'll still keep the covenant and not do it the same way again until the final judgment. We know he's coming in.
Yeah. You know, so my point is, wouldn't that mean that the ground isn't actually cursed right now, like everybody keeps saying?
Well, one of the descriptions of the curse was thorns and briars. Like, we still have that. Like, we still, like, the way that he cursed it I think there's 2 different curses. Like, the way that he cursed it during Noah's time was a flood destruction, and the way that he cursed it with Adam was thorns and thistles, and that you're gonna work for the food of the ground, things like that. Those things are still happening, but there's no more flood. You know. Yeah,
but even in the kingdom, it talks about we'll still be planting and growing and reaping harvest and stuff. So we'll still be working the ground, but it won't be a curse.
Well, I don't think there's going to be thorns and thistles, and I don't think that we're going to be working to the sweat of our brow and tired and, you know, doing what JP does all the time in the garden. Like, I don't think we're going to be plucking our hands on thorns. And I think that was a different I mean, it seems like a different curse because you have the
It does.
flood destroying the ground, and then you have Adam's curse destroying the ground in a sense, you know. So I know that that's going to be removed, but right now we still have thorns and thistles. We still got to work with the sweat of our brow. We still have those things that is evidence of what he said in Genesis. You know,
Yeah,
but we have a rainbow to tell us that there's not going to be a flood anymore. So we have that covenant showing that he's not going to do a specific thing anymore, but we still have the thorns and thistles to remind us of Adam.
that idea though is out there, Mike. I've matter of fact, I'm looking at a Nelson's translation, and it actually says the awful devastation on the earth and its fullness that the flood caused will never be repeated. It is also possible that this may be a reference back to Genesis 3:17. This is the good news. The bad news is that Elohim knew that the conditions of mankind had not changed. So the possibility is there, but there's no direct connection. But there's an idea that that's what it could be. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
It could have been if
with
sin.
Johnny,
Well,
that's
it could have been if sin didn't arise again. You know, because the sins of man is what curses the ground. Like even after Noah, when man sinned, that's the reason why the earth is continuously cursed, even now. You know, so maybe at this point everything was refreshed, the covenant was refreshed, but then when Ham did what he did, it started to bring back the curses and establish wicked men on the earth and things like that.
Either way, it's still cursed now, then, because we do have the.
Yeah, either way, it's cursed right now. Yeah, definitely. It's
We screwed
definitely.
it.
But nah, that's good insight though, man. It's
Yeah, good
it's
investigation.
definitely there's something there. You know what I mean? There's definitely something there.
Yeah. Now I see verse. Well, let me let Robbie go, and then I'm gonna mention something. Go ahead, Robbie.
Two questions. I don't know if we've gotten that far yet, but I've heard some think that the flood, when you use the word earth, it could have more than one meaning. It could be just for that local inhabitants of Noah and the civilization at that time. And then others say, no, it's the whole physical global earth, regardless if people were inhabited on other parts of the planet or not. So what would be the correct understanding?
Yeah.
There's thorns and thistles all over the world. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that there's like a perfect garden somewhere in which, you know, everything is still perfect. Like the curse is throughout the whole earth. Isaiah chapter 24, verse 4-6, it says that the earth mourn and fades away, and the world languishes and fades away, and the haughty people of the earth do languish. It says the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the Torah, changed the ordinances, and broken the everlasting covenant. Verse 6 says, therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. So the inhabitants of the whole world are demonstrating this wickedness and this rebelliousness against the instructions of Yah. And due to that rebelliousness, the whole earth is cursed, because they have broken the everlasting covenant, and they continue to break and change his ordinances and his laws and break his everlasting covenant. So it's not talking about one spot. It's talking about the inhabitants of the entire world. So that's the condition of the whole earth at this point.
All right, thank you.
No problem. All right. Rick, you wanted to say something earlier?
Not really, but I did. But you guys covered it where you were talking about at that end in Noah's time when he flooded it to basically destroy and to eliminate the evil, sinful man. But at the end of everything, he's going to actually, like you said, he's going to destroy sin and death. Ultimately, that's the final victory. So I see the first timing up until Noah's time, he destroyed and cleansed. And I think at the end of this age, if you will, or this period of time, it's going to be the same way, but it's going to be a final victory against it. So he's going to finally clean the sin and death from man, basically, at that point. So it's not going to be an issue. Did we lose him? Oh, no, there he is over there. Okay.
No, I'm here.
Where I left you before, you turned off your video and you moved on me. Anyway, that was the only thought I had.
Oh, no, definitely. Let me let Mike go, and then I'm going to mention something about the last verse, and then we're going to go into chapter 9. Go ahead, Mike.
I did have one more question. Why is it that everything was killed except for sea animals? Everything was killed except for sea animals. Is there any significance there?
It's water.
Well, I know why biologically, but I'm saying in Yah's eyes, why did he kill everything except for the sea animals?
Because they're the most friendliest animals. Nah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Does anybody have an answer to?
Well, and one more thing with that, because I know he has clean fish, but there's no fish that we sacrifice, right?
No.
So that would kind of go against the idea that he gave us clean animals because they were for sacrificing, wouldn't it?
No, because Noah didn't eat animals, but he knew that he had to offer clean animals to Yah. So we can see that there were designated animals referred to as clean animals for offering even before Noah ate animals.
Well, how do we know he didn't eat animals?
Huh?
How do we know he didn't eat animals?
Because he wouldn't have to explain to him to eat animals without the blood after the flood. He wouldn't have to explain that because he would already be practicing it. But he didn't tell him, hey, make sure you use the clean. No, he didn't have to tell him that because he was already offering clean animals. You see that? So we see that one was already his routine and the other was something different that was being added to his lifestyle.
Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Let me let Ayla go. Go ahead, Ayla.
Okay. The last verse 22. When I first came into Torah, I was told that all of these things that are mentioned, as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and winter and summer, and day and night will not cease. I was told that those are all seasons. So can you clarify as to whether or not they're all seasons? And then I think last week we touched on this a little bit concerning, I think so, concerning like this very verse, and not to say like we spoke on verse 22, but the different, for lack of a better term, seasons that are mentioned here. So please elaborate for me. Okay, thank you.
No problem. JP enlightened me with this, so I'm gonna hand it to he. That was not good, but all right, go ahead, JP. Explain.
I don't know. I have a different question.
You showed me this.
What are we talking? I'm sorry. I was reading something.
I know. I saw you. I saw you staring into the eyes of your child. So
yeah,
distracted.
What was the question, though?
You remember the last verse? This is actually, thank you, Ayla. This is actually the verse I was going to talk about before we moved on. The last verse where it talks about the earth remains, seed time, harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, and people usually take this. Even myself, I used to take this as this is talking about all 4 seasons, and it's actually not talking about 4 seasons. And we're going to look at the Hebrew words right now. So it says, while the earth remains. Now, this is a new condition of the earth. This is a new condition. This is not the same condition it was before. So now there's cold. There wasn't cold before, you know, and there's not going to be cold later on. We're not going to have a winter where everything dies after everything is restored. Like that's, yeah. So we'll look at this. Seed time is H2233. We're going to go through each word, right? So seed time, of course, everybody knows this is the time to plant. This is the sowing time. The harvest time is the gathering time, is the reaping time, right? We know that we have 2 points in the calendar of Yah. We have the time of harvest, we have the time of sowing, and then the time of harvest. We have the time of planting and the time of ingathering. There's only 2 times that we have in scripture that is being revealed. And then it says, and we have cold, and the word means cold, and we have heat, and the word means heat. Summer is H7019, and it means harvest. It means harvest time. Winter actually means autumn. It means crop gathering time. So it's basically repeating the same thing. Seed time, harvest, hot, cold. Summertime, not summertime, H7019. Harvest time, and then we have winter, H2779, which is Choref or Choref. It means autumn or crop gathering, and we know that that happens in the 7th month. It doesn't happen in the winter. Nobody's ingathering any crops during the winter. It is already done in the 7th month of the fall. So now he's setting up where the appointed times is going to be, you know, as far as where the feast is going to go. You know, day and night, he's saying, shall not cease. So summer and winter, seed time and harvest are talking about the same things. It's talking about the same things. It's not talking about winter like in, you know, what we call, I don't know why it's translated in King James as winter, because when you look at it, it actually says autumn. So I don't know why it's translated into winter. I'm not sure what they thought back in the days when they was writing it. I don't know. But all I know is that what he's trying to express is he's trying to express the springtime to the autumn. That's what he's trying to reveal to us, that the springtime to the autumn is going to happen continuously until, you know, until everything is restored, until the earth is restored back to the way he wanted it. You know what I mean? So it's not talking about the 4 seasons. It's literally talking about 2 elements of the year, harvest and, seed time and harvest. Harvesting or ingathering, according to what we're talking about. Harvesting in the spring, and the harvesting actually occurs all the way until the ingathering, which is in the fall, when they complete the gathering of everything. So I think that this has a spiritual significance because it also talks about the Messiah uses harvest as a method in talking about salvation. You know, the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. You know what I mean? So he's saying, like, continually, there's going to be, this is in my mind. I'm not gonna project and say this is from Yah. I'm not gonna say that. But from what I connect with the harvest always represents the saving of souls, or the bringing people into the fold, or the flock of Yah, or the house of Yah. You know what I mean? So he says, it seems like he's saying from this point on, because the verse 21 talks about the wickedness that's in the hearts of the youth. From this point on, there's going to be a constant reaping and gathering of his people from the earth, you know, until the end. You know, I'm just looking at the spiritual aspect to it, because when we look at the agriculture that was set up, the way that the structure of agriculture was set up, it was supposed to teach us about the mission that Yah has in saving man. So right now, he's just giving a little insight as to what these things represent, and he's also revealing that he is trying to save man. I'm pretty sure Noah knew that he was trying to redeem him, you know, from, you know, give him deliverance. I mean, obviously, you see Noah receiving deliverance at this time. So that's my point of view. Anybody else have anything to say about that? Any points? Knickknacks?
Yeah, I definitely agree that Scripture speaks, you know, harvest, you being the gathering of souls as well. I think too, that passage, verse 22, became a poem, became a song for the Israelites, because it's repeated in Isaiah 54 and in Jeremiah 33. So just wanted to point that out.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, Rod. Absolutely. That was great. All right. This was good. This was a good breakdown. Let's go to the next chapter. This is going to be, I think there's a lot in chapter 9. Again, I don't read it ahead of time, because I want to read it with you guys. Go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just going to say, this is where Mike's going to get his answers.
Yeah, this is
about
Oh yeah.
about
the food or the flesh, animals.
Right.
Also, Wesley wanted to bring something out here too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
he did. That's why I'm
last
going to
week.
read.
That's why you want to
Probably
read?
gonna-
Oh, that
That's
is.
going to destroy
Yeah.
a lot of things here. Let's go.
I remember.
You know what I'm going to talk about, John. Let's go.
All right. Be my guest. The first 10 verses, and then you can pull out what you see first.
All
I'm a mute.
right. All right. So this is chapter 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb I have given all things. But the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man. At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whosoever sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And you be fruitful, multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spoke unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and I beheld, and I established my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, and of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. It's up to 10.
Can you read verse 11 too?
Yeah. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth.
So now he's getting specific as to what he was making a covenant about earlier. So I think sometimes we kind of generalize and make this the focal point when he describes it a little bit more, gives us a little bit more detail as we continue reading. But go ahead, Wesley. Break down what you want to break down, brother.
All right, so there's a couple things, but I'm just going to pick on one subject just because I've actually been trying to look into this more. It's been some time now, but I'm not saying I'm 100% correct. I'm just saying what I see through Scripture. So if we look at chapter 9, verse 3, and he's talking about every moving thing that liveth, that every moving thing that liveth shall be meat unto you. That's where everyone says, oh, moving thing is talking about animals. This is where the Father instituted eating animals. But if we actually look up the Hebrew word for moving thing, it actually is only used for, and it's from the root word for creeping thing. It's not actually talking about cattle whatsoever. It's talking about creeping things that creep us upon the earth. And it's actually not used in any other instance for cattle. And you can actually see the previous chapters and in Genesis chapter 2 and 3. But the previous chapter in Genesis chapter 8, I believe it's in verse 19, it says, every beast, every creeping thing, that same exact word, every creeping thing is the same exact Hebrew word for moving thing. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
The Hebrew word is remes. It means creeping things. Eating animals was a suggestion. because he didn't say go eat animals. He just said make sure you're not eating no blood.
So the actual command
But
itself.
what he did say is, I'm gonna give you the creeping things. So when everybody says, "Oh, John the Baptist there's a flower called locust. There's a flower that says it's a locust flower. He didn't eat no bugs. No, he ate the bug because bug was given to Noah to eat. And bugs, there's locusts that are clean that you can eat. So he gave him bugs.
And that's what like really brought me onto this, because when I was reading every moving thing, I just decided to look up the actual word for it. And then you actually see that it comes from the word creeping thing, or something that moves swiftly, and it's only used for insects. It's never, ever used for actual animals, cattle. So I thought I'd throw that out there. Still looking at it. It's been a while, but I'm still going through it all. But I'm just showing the evidence that I've seen so far. And that, to me, blew my mind going, wow, it actually doesn't mean what the English word we tend to go for, moving thing.
Absolutely. Plus, this is harvest time, so things are starting to grow. Obviously, because the dove came back with the olive leaf that was plucked, so things are starting to grow. And he not only says that in verse 3, he says, "Every creeping thing that lives shall be food for you, even as the green herb have I given to you all things." So now he's reiterating, just like the green herbs that I've given to you, the creeping things and green herbs. That's what he's giving. And then he says in verse 4, "But flesh with life thereof, the blood shall you not eat." So now he's given prohibitions if he was to eat a clean animal. You see? So he's not telling Noah, go ahead and go eat some chicken. He's saying, go ahead and eat some bugs with the herbs of the ground that I gave you. This is pretty different, huh?
And what's also just to bear in mind
Wes,
too that there. Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to bear in mind too that there is clean and unclean insects that we're not supposed to eat as well. But
right.
Again, that's they understood that as a give me.
Yeah.
But as far as that word, it's pretty clear.
Right. Absolutely. He didn't have to re-explain the clean and unclean because that was the lifestyle that they had. What he did have to do was, because most of the vegetation was starting to grow back since this is the first month. So he's starting to grow back. He was just like, before everything grows back, these bugs, and he didn't have to explain the clean bugs because he already knew what was clean and unclean. But I don't think that he ate bugs. That's why he's comparing it to what he gave him to eat. I don't think Noah normally ate clean bugs. So when he said you can eat the clean bugs, it was something new. And then that's why he compared it to something old. You can eat the clean bugs just like I gave you the herbs from the ground. No, that's excellent, Wes. Excellent.
Been dying to do that for a while now.
Mike, go ahead, Mike. You just look like you're very intense right now. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm trying to make sense of this. So it doesn't specify clean or unclean bugs, which according to Exodus, there's only, I believe, two: the grasshoppers and the locusts, which is pretty much the same thing. But it doesn't specify that here. And they didn't sacrifice insects to know which ones are clean and unclean. Also,
what do you mean they didn't sacrifice bugs to know which one is? Sacrificing doesn't make you know which one is clean and unclean. God does. Yah tells us the difference. We don't have to sacrifice it to know which one. We don't even do that now. But continue with your second point.
Okay, so, and are you trying to imply because cattle isn't listed, that's why they didn't eat cattle?
It's not that it's not listed. It's just the meaning of the word, the actual meaning of it. It means creeping thing, which is not used whatsoever for cattle.
No, that I get, and I see that, but I'm saying, I'm still trying to make sense out of it because It says, I don't know. I gotta reread it a couple times.
Because it says moving thing, but moving thing is just the English translation or whoever wrote it.
Yeah, that's not what I'm stumped on. I get that. I agree. It
No,
says
you stumped on them. You stumped on Noah eating animals, right?
no. I'm stumped off of what this says here. I'm trying to.
Which verse? Which verse?
I'm just gonna read 2 to 5 again. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, and upon all that creepeth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hands are they delivered. First off, what does that mean? Into your hands they are delivered.
You even see a difference between beast of the earth. I mean, I'm reading out of the King James, but it even says every beast of the earth, and then it separates it with the fowl, and then separates again. It says upon all that moveth upon the earth. So you have 3 categories: a beast, a fowl, and then all that moveth.
Yeah, but I'm saying I get the creepy thing. That's all I'm saying. So what? First off, what does it mean? Into your hands they are delivered. What does he mean by that?
That means that he has dominion, like he has dominion
power.
over. When the enemies were given into the hands of the Israelites, they didn't slaughter every single one of them. They actually had control over the people that was given into their hands. Like they had, Gentile nations that were slaves because they had charge over them now. So here he's given that the same dominion that Adam had, he's given to Noah.
All right. So verse 3, every moving thing or creeping thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things, which we know. He still couldn't eat everything that creepeth, right? Because there's only.
Well, we know that.
The locust family, the beetle family, yeah.
Okay, so that's talking about creeping things, insects, obviously. So to go straight into verse 4 and say, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. It doesn't specify. It doesn't specify what flesh, like what he's talking about. If he just got done talking about eating insects and then goes straight into eating flesh, what flesh? Flesh of this from fish of the sea, flesh from the fowls of the air, flesh from cattle. Say it again.
Insects doesn't have blood.
I would definitely say, in reference to that there was always already an establishment of what was clean. But I think that whole idea of moving thing, meaning creeping things, kind of shifts that conversation as well. I don't have an answer. I thought I did. I don't. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. I think that one thing that we're trying to make Yah have to say every single word that we understand over and over again in these conversations. And I think that there's already an established, because when he brought the clean and unclean things into the ark, he had to also bring the clean and unclean creeping things into the ark as well. So and another thing, when we're looking at these conversations, I don't think that it just reveals every single word that they had a conversation about. Like, I don't think this is the entire conversation between Yah and Noah. Just like it doesn't give us the conversation between Adam and Eve when he says, you hearken unto the voice of your wife. We don't even see a conversation between Adam and Eve during that, All we know is that Yah said that there was a conversation and you listened to your wife, and we don't even see that there. So one thing I don't want to assume is that there was no conversation outside of these scriptures between Noah and Yah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of my point too, because I still don't think, because it doesn't say, and it doesn't really show that they didn't eat meat. It just shows that he's just giving more instruction. Because it even makes me think like, yeah, I understand that they knew what animals are clean and unclean, even if it was just for sacrifices purpose. But why would they have all these other animals anyways? Why would they they have all these cattle if they're not eating them? If they're just gonna take animals from around the world just to hold them for sacrificing, that doesn't, you know. I
No, to
believe y'all gave
replenish
them.
the earth. It was to replenish the earth. Like they were saved
That's
so
my
they
point. If they're replenishing them just to sacrifice them. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
They have
that's
to
not
have.
what
No,
you're saying.
nobody's saying that.
That's what you're
Clean
saying.
animals were used. Clean animals were used for farming. The manure is used for to fertilize the ground and for minerals. There's a whole bunch of things that animals were used for. They didn't have lawnmower. They had flocks that would graze the grass and keep the grass low. Like all of the stuff, there was a lot of function, not only to unclean animals. Unclean animals wasn't the only ones with function, and the clean animals were just to eat. Like, no, the clean animals has a lot of function even within themselves. Like, so whatever they were created to do on the earth before Yah even allowed anyone to eat them, they still have
Or
that function
sacrifice them.
after the flood. Before sacrifices, they were created. So even before sacrifices was made, they still were created and they still had a function. So now they still have a function. I see horses, cows, lambs, goats just grazing on the mountain, and what these farmers would do, they would take them to another part, they would graze, huh?
Well, and I understand. I don't mean that. I know they have another purpose. That's my point. But I'm saying like you said, we still use them today for the same things they use them for then. But yet we still also eat them because y'all has them clean. So we can also, I believe, so that we can eat them as well.
No, he allowed it. He allowed you to eat them, and then he made some prohibitions. It's kind of like he allowed divorce. It's not like he wanted you to divorce. He allowed divorce, and he made prohibitions for divorce, just like he allowed you to eat the animals. If he wanted you, if it was his desire for you to eat it, he would have made you eat it in Genesis before sin. But he never did
He doesn't command us to eat fruits and vegetables, though, so we can't.
No, he's telling you what he gave to you to eat. That's what he's telling you. He said, this is what I'm giving you to eat. You can't now choose another thing. Oh, yeah, I'm going to eat this chicken over here now. After the flood, he's allowing certain things to occur, and then he's giving you prohibitions on what not to do with the things he's allowing. You see what I'm saying? So whenever he allows something, he always tells you what not to do with it. We don't see him saying, go eat some chicken, go eat some cattle, go eat some goats. No, we don't see that. We just see him saying, and of the flesh, don't eat the blood. He's given prohibitions. But with the vegetables and the fruits, he's saying, I'm giving you the vegetables and fruits to eat. So those are two different things. One is he's giving you it, and another thing he's allowing. Even when he rained down manna, that's all he wanted to give them. He wanted to give them manna. But they were whining and complaining about flesh, so he allowed them to have quail.
And do you believe that's because of sin? That we eat animals because of sin?
Well, it depends on the culture. Like, look at where they were. Like, they were in Egypt. If you look at the culture, it wasn't like he gave it to, like, the world followed after his instructions. The world was doing their own thing, but they had the knowledge as well. You know what I mean? So you have them complaining about eating from the flesh pots of Egypt. And then when they came out, that's what they were complaining about, what they used to do. So what did Yah do? He allowed them to have the quail because that's what they were complaining about having. But when he gave them food, it was only manna. Just like in Genesis, when he gave them food, it was only fruits and vegetables and herbs.
I think that the biggest reason why I'm probably holding on to this is because I know Yahusha, even when he resurrected and came back down in his spiritual body, he was still eating fish.
It's not saying this is a sin. It's not saying just because he's allowing it, just because that's not his intent doesn't mean it's a sin if you do it. You see what I'm saying?
But that doesn't. That's so, and I can't picture Yahusha doing anything that isn't Yahuwah's intent. If he's eating fish, I can't say he's doing.
Say he's eating fish when he came down. It just says that fish was prepared.
It does. It says he's cooking the fish.
We're gonna let's move forward a little bit. We're lingering too long on this question.
Even with that, in Deuteronomy, he gives and allows the fish and cattle. So that comes back around anyway. So that's like you're saying, that's allowed. It's not like it's not spoken on. It's spoken
Right.
of.
If the Messiah
I
was
guess
on
the
this
well,
earth and
yeah,
he was eating
we'll
the
just focus on
Passover
this.
lamb, like it's not like, oh, because I'm allowing these things to happen, because I'm instructing these things to happen certain way. If Messiah came and did it, it's a sin. Like, no, it's, if it's a sin, it's a sin. That's it. If it's not a sin, we can't say, why did Yahusha not? No, it's not a sin. So we don't have to worry about anything. Unless it's a sin, then unless Yahusha sinned, then we have to question. If it's not a sin, we don't have to question or think about anything, because nothing is against Yah at that point. Now it's like we got to make it against Yah. Oh, if it's not my intent, it's against me. No, that's not what he said. Yah's intent for everybody to be together. But what did Messiah say when there was other people baptizing? He says, if they're not against us, then they're for us. Leave them alone. Just because they're not over here, which is Yah's intent for everyone to be together as a nation, just because they're over there doesn't mean that they're sinning. Leave them alone. You see what I'm saying? So we don't have to even go that deep into.
No, I didn't say he sinned, so that's not. I wasn't going that direction, but I know what you mean, though.
No,
I agree.
yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Wesley, you wanted to say something?
No. That's fine. You said you covered it basically. It was just I was just referring to this instance. Of course, the Father did allow the eating of the meat, and then we can definitely see the confirmation of that in Deuteronomy when he was telling the people once again the clean and unclean, and this is what you don't do, type situation. And yeah, I'm just referring to this situation, but we're good.
All right, JP, go ahead, brother.
Oh no, I was just I know you guys ain't trying to draw out that topic, but I see in Genesis 129 and 130, it's an interesting 2 verses, and I'm pretty sure we went over it, but it says, I read it in 2 different ways. You know what I'm saying? I read it in 2 different ways as I keep reading it over and over. But I see in one way, he says, and Elohim said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, and the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, and it shall be meat for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given you, or given every green herb for meat, and it was so. And I read it now, I'm reading it in 2 different ways, like as if, one, he gave us as people, all food, and he's given us what everything to eat. But then I started reading it, and I was like, well, kind of what you guys are, what Wes had brought up, it kind of makes sense also to the sense of saying, well, in verse 30 of Genesis 1, is that it's pertaining to the animals and to every beast of the earth and to every fowl of the air he gave. It's that verse is for the animals, and 29 would be for the people. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I thought what Wes brought up was a very interesting thing to look at. But that was it.
No, I'm glad that you.
Go ahead, brother.
No, JP, this is good content. This is good context here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so this is good context. Right now, we have a command to man, and then we have a command to the beast. When you look in the statutes and judgments, there's a command to, there's a requirement that he has for man, and if animals do something, there's a punishment for animals as well. When we go back to Genesis chapter 9, right, it gives us that same thing, that same division, right? Where are we?
You're talking about 9:5 and 5, 6, and 7.
9:5. Yes. So in verse 4, let's start from verse 4. Genesis chapter 9, verse 4. It says, but flesh with the life thereof, the blood thereof shall you not eat. And then it says in verse 5, and surely your blood of your lives will I require, at the hand of every beast will I require it. So if an animal kills you, Yah is going to require that animal to be destroyed. And then it says, and at the hand of man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. So he's not leaving animals out. There's a requirement that he has for animals as well as for man. So when you go to Genesis, you see that he's providing for man and then he's providing for animals. And we have even Messiah confirms that in Matthew chapter 6 when he says, like, Yah takes care of the sparrow. Yah provides for the sparrow. Like, he's not going to tell us all these details. Oh, I'm about to go feed the sparrows now. Like, no, he's made a covenant with the animals of the earth. I think it says that in I think we just read that too, where it says that he made a covenant with, didn't he say, I made a covenant with the, at the end of chapter 8? At the end of chapter 8.
No, I read verse 11, which says, I will establish my covenant with you, but it's with, yeah. But
there was a statement that he made that he was going to make a covenant with man and with the beasts. About the destruction.
Why would he make a punishment for the animals if they don't have free will?
I think we assume a lot about animals. I have no idea what animals have. I just know that even in the Torah, there's a lot of judgments and statutes that pertain to animals. Like if an animal kills another animal, then that animal has to be killed. If the animal kills a person, that animal has to be killed. So it's like there's a punishment for the animal. So I'm not going to say, and the Bible is clear. It says that man has tamed every animal. So every animal that's tamed, it doesn't mean that they don't have free will. It just means that they were trained, and then now they listen. Now they obey. So I'm pretty sure that's, and then, you know, Messiah mentions about the sheep saying, my sheep know my voice. They hear me and then they come to me. So any animal that does things outside of the realm of that training, you know, should be killed. Just like us, we're trained by Yah, and if we do anything outside of the training that Yah's given us, the instruction that Yah's given us, what happens to us? You know, it's the same. It's not the same exact requirement because we're two different species, but there is something that Yah requires animals, that he requires of animals.
Hey, John, wouldn't that be more for the animal owner? Like if the bull does something to the other bull, then it would be required that owner's bull has to die then too.
Yeah, that's what it says in Torah.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was both. It says if the owner knows. Well, this is in the Torah. If the owner knows that the bull was if that was the normal way that the bull will react, if the owner knew that and did not make prevention of this happening, then the owner and the bull will be in trouble. But the bull is also incorporated in the punishment. You know, it's not like the animal gets off free because the animal is owned by a man, but both the man and the animal is both used. But if the owner did not know, then the owner is not held accountable, but the animal will be destroyed.
And also that verse you were looking for, I think it's 9:12.
9:12. Yeah, right. So he's making a covenant, and it's not just saying I'm gonna make a covenant with Noah that I'm not gonna destroy the earth. He doesn't even say that. He says I'm gonna make a covenant with Noah, with me and you, and with every living creature. So I'm not only making a covenant with me and you, I'm also making a covenant with him and the creatures. And I believe that in some manner, the creatures do respond to Yah. They do have like this. I mean, we see it too. They're in the ark together. They went to the ark. Obviously, they're listening to Yah tell them to go to the ark. You know what I mean?
And you can tell dogs know the difference between right and wrong. Because when I get onto my dogs because they do something bad, you can just tell. They put their tail down. They're like, "Oh man, I did wrong," before I even mention it. So
it's funny you mention that, Wes, because Darius wants a dog. So we've been researching particular dogs recently. And one of the things we found is that they respond to the lightning, like they hide, and then you can watch, nature, how when there are storms or when there's something coming, all the animals run, everything responds. So I do think there is an acknowledgement to Yahuah by every living thing,
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. Like that's why there's service dogs. There's dogs that can sense when a person is about to have a seizure. and they're there to protect the person during the seizure. Or there's individuals who have, I'm not sure what it's called, when they have like an anxiety attack, and then they come, they notice it, and then they come and they comfort the person constantly until they calm down. Like that, to me, that's amazing. That's amazing that he created animals, and they're not just brainless, mindless creatures that go off of only instinct. They have brains. They think. Just like look at this situation, right? And this is what most people say. When you look at the situation with Balaam, right, and he's whipping the donkey, right? Everybody says that Yah spoke through the donkey. It doesn't say that in the scripture. It says that Yah, he opened his mouth, and the donkey spoke from his own perspective. Why are you hitting me? I am loyal to you. I have never disobeyed you. This is what the donkey is saying. So imagine, like, these are the things that animals think. This is why when we're dealing with animal cruelty, these tree huggers or these fanatics, they're not so far-fetched. Like there's a truth to what they're doing as far as protecting the animals, because animals have that mental capacity to at least acknowledge their master, because Yah has given dominion to man. So they have that natural, I can be tamed by you. You are my master. You see what I'm saying? That's why it says in the book of James chapter 3, it says man has tamed every animal, except for the tongue. That's what he says. So there is some level of acknowledgement that just read, the dread of you shall be on every living thing. Like there is some acknowledgement that animals have when man is around. This is I don't know. I wish I could know the details of that, but we know that from scripture, like animals have their own perspective as well as an instinct as well. You know what I mean? I can't deny it. Let's see. This is a good conversation. All right, so let's see if we can look at 10 more verses, and I don't think we're gonna be able to go further than that. So let's look at verse 12 to 20. Well, we may be able to finish this chapter. I think we talked about a lot of things that's going to be in the rest of the verses. Anybody want to read verse 12 to 20? Wesley, I think you should read because you used us. You used us so you can say something. So now you have to read.
I mean, I can read. I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right. Read verse 12 to 20. User.
And God said, "This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of the covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, and I will remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be a husbandman and planted a vineyard.
All right, nice. You want to point something out real quick?
No, I'm good. You can.
No? All right. All right. What was that? Verse 12. Anybody see anything? Rick, Rod, you guys see anything you guys want to make pop out?
Yeah, I don't know if it pops out, but I definitely, when I looked at verse 13, like, we read this verse and we see the rainbow, But to them, to the contemporaries at that moment, that had to be of great comfort, knowing that prior to the flood, it had never rained, and that any time it rained afterwards, they had to question, is it coming again? Because it would have been only Noah that knew and would have been able to pass that down as to what happened prior. So that rainbow was shalom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Crazy. Every time it rained, they're like, whoa.
Right. Yeah. So when I look at it that way, we have to rethink that, too. The other thing was, is it possible that prior to the flood, the rainbow was something they always saw, and that maybe they didn't see it after the flood, so that he brings it back? But that's speculation. I'm just saying. But yeah, I looked at it and said, man, that had to be of great consolation to them, great peace to them, as it should be for us, but definitely for them to see the rainbow.
Absolutely. Now, I think that the rainbow was something brand new, because there was never any rain clouds. There was no rain clouds that would be there. So when it said in verse 13, I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign. So, that rain, the scientific aspect of a rainbow is when the light goes through the water.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So there was never any water in the firmament. It was always above. It was below and above, and then in the firmament there was never any rain clouds until it started raining. So imagine when they looked. In my perspective, they never saw a rainbow. So imagine even looking at a rainbow as something, majestic, something supernatural from Yah. You know what I mean? Right now we look at it like, okay, this is a nice looking rainbow. But in this perspective, we need to be like he put it there so we can remember something, and here go with the memorial thing again.
Right.
We were talking about the first of Abib, and Noah took the cover off the ark, and now he's telling us that every time we see a rainbow, it's like he's communicating with us. It's like he's telling us, I remember my covenant.
Still.
And I liked what you said earlier, Rod. You said that when the weather is a certain way, the animals flee. So imagine like the animals is probably like,
right. Because they don't know about that covenant.
It's a new generation of animals that never.
Right.
But it's just interesting to see that what you said, Rod, like to get into the minds of the people at that time and seeing something that they've never seen before. I think the reason why that's good to do is so that we can restore the way that we see it now. We need to see it with the same awe and the same, appreciation that this is something that Yah is doing. This is something that Yah gave us. Like he gave us the rainbow. That's just crazy in my mind. Like he gave it to us so we can remember it. He didn't just put it up there and just said, no, he created the science behind the rainbow. The light will shine through. Light shining through the water creates the rainbow. So it's just like his light shining through is what's creating the sign. It's something that we need to look past. Is just a scientific thing. Like, no, it didn't exist until he made it exist, and he made it exist for us. So I think that we need to personalize a lot of these things rather than just reading it like it's a story. This is our history. He's doing these things for us. So we need to personalize these things. Let me let Mike go, and then JP.
All right. So for the rainbow, I don't think the animals fear, because it says that covenant wasn't just for us. That it says that was for us and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. That covenant was given to about the rainbow. So that was us, the animals. I'm assuming insects and everything. So why is it that you guys say that it didn't rain before this, before the flood?
Does anybody have that verse, or can want to answer that?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can You repeat it.
Oh, he said, why are we saying that it never rained
Before the flood.
before the flood?
Oh, let me.
I don't want to just say because it says it never rained, but I want to look for the verse.
Yeah. It is.
Just so you guys know, I'm not challenging anybody anyway. I don't know the
Why?
answer to what I'm asking.
Why not? Why not? You're supposed to test all things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just because you're wrong most of the time, it doesn't mean nah. It's good to challenge. It's good to exercise. We need to know. Like I should have known where it was right away. Genesis chapter 2, verse 5. I mean, this is good for us to memorize where these things are. It says, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth. And remember, Moses is narrating, and it said, every herb of the field before it grew, because Yah Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till it. But there went up mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the earth. So the earth was watered by the mist that went up from the earth. There was no clouds but water.
So in turn, no rain.
Right.
Yeah, but that's it seems to me the context of that is before man was here to till the earth and to take care of it. It says every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for Yahuwah Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But after this, he made man to till the ground.
Well, he made man to guard the garden. Like man wasn't like going all around the earth tilling all, every single tree all over the earth. Like he was in the garden and he was told to guard the garden. What you gonna say, Rod?
Nah, I was gonna say, you and I had a conversation. We were talking about the idea of Noah's family being giants, and him mentioning there were giants before and after. And we talked about how Moshe was the historian here. He's writing here. So the things he's writing, he's imparting so that we understand the makeup of the earth, the land, and the sea. He's telling us that there was no rain. A mist came up. That was what the earth was like, a greenhouse, so to speak, where it was moisture and it was mist coming up. There was no need for it to rain. So when this happened, this is the first mention of rain coming from the sky. The heavens being opened. So we have to look at it that way too. Moshe is given an account in history, and he places things so when we get to them, we have a clear understanding of what he's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good reminder. That's a good reminder. Something to keep into memory. There's a lot of times in which he's comparing and contrasting what's happening in the past with what happens during their time. I think just like we just read, it said, and he had 3 sons, Shem, Japheth, and Ham, and then he just slid in. Ham is the father of Canaan, because they were going to Canaan. You see what I'm saying? So only the people in his time would know the significance in Ham being the father of Canaan. So he put that in there because Moses is narrating for the people that's reading it, which is the Israelites at his time. He's not narrating it for Abraham and Noah. He's narrating it for the people in the Israelites where things are totally different.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I forgot about that verse. Well, then that's kind of cool then. So he doesn't only give us the rainbow, he gives us the rain so we remember judgment. We remember what he can do, but then he also gives us the remembrance of the covenant that he's not going to do it yet.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Just not going to do it yet.
When it rains a certain way, sometimes it's like Man, I remember when I was driving in Jersey, and I'm talking about it was storming. This is before I learned about the Torah, and before I learned, and I was even like in and out with Yah. And I remember I was driving home in Jersey, and it was raining so hard I had to stop. And the thunder, and it was raining so hard I couldn't see out the windows, and I literally thought I was gonna die. It was just crazy. I literally thought I was just like, I don't know what's happening right now. And I started repenting, and I was just like, oh man, I don't know what's happening. And it was rain and thunder. And I think it's scary when you're out there, and it's like, I've never seen that like that before. I mean, and when I did, I was inside, comfortable, you know. So to be out there, I started to realize the danger of that type of weather, you know. So, but you're right, it is a remembrance, because I did remember, and I did ask for save me.
The covenant isn't that nobody's gonna ever be killed in a storm. But again, it was just the whole world won't happen with the whole world.
Right, exactly.
People still die in them. So
yeah, so he probably was talking to me like, hey, wake up, get back in your word. Like, this place is ending. So I definitely.
You know what's amazing about that though? Like when it rains like that, there are periods of time where the rain comes down in such force, like when you can't see out the windows, and our city's sewage systems can't handle that kind of rain. Like there's always a flooded area, no matter where you are. No matter how complex your sewage system is, it floods those areas when the rain comes down like that. And it's just, I imagine that when we were going through, Genesis 6 last couple of weeks, like it was harder than that. The rain was harder than that, and came like that for 40 days, So
right.
Things to.
And it just shows like man can't handle the natural things that Yah's put in place, or when he wants to utilize something natural to wake you up. And this is when you look at certain destructions that's in Book of Revelation. There's certain destructions, and at the end of there's these trumpets, right? And you guys could, I'm not going to interpret it. So the trumpets were showing like these destructions after each trumpet, and then after like the sixth trumpet, it said, and they didn't repent. As if he did these destructions in order for us to wake up and say, oh, I need to turn from my ways. So a lot of times we're looking at these destructions and we're not repenting. Me and Dom was talking about the ocean, and it says in scripture that the ocean, let's talk about it real quick. The ocean comes to a certain place, right, in the morning, and then in the night it goes further in or something like that, where I'm not sure what it's called. I forgot.
High and low tide. Low and high tide.
High and low tide. There we go. And it says that the ocean obeys the command of Yah. Now, scientifically, there's no reason why the ocean shouldn't just cover the whole earth. There's nothing stopping the ocean from continuing to keep on going, except for what the Bible says is the command that it stops wherever it stops. So when a tsunami comes and then it keeps on going and wipes out, you can't say that that's not Yah, because there's a command for the ocean to stop.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But instead, you have these scientists want to explain it away and say, no, this is just something that occurs, and people have no conviction of, I need to go back to Yah. We need to keep that sensitivity. When we see these things that we know Yah puts into place, when it's out of place, we can't be like, oh yeah, there's a reason. No, that's just Yah. And I need to do something. I need to do more. I need to give myself to him.
Well, I think.
Go ahead, Mike.
It's ridiculous. It's like if I get some material together and go outside right now and build, well, it's Shabbat, but I'm just theoretically. And if I go out there and build something, right, and then some scientists come along the way and start looking at it, experimenting with it, taking it apart, and then figure out how I made it, they're like, oh, see, we figured out how we made it, so it wasn't made. Like, it doesn't make sense. Just because you figured out how you think you figured out how something works doesn't mean that it wasn't, like, it was still made. Just because you figured out how it was made doesn't mean it wasn't made. You just saw how it was made. So it's stupid to explain it away. You're just explaining it more into existence.
Right. Oh, there's an earthquake under the ocean, so it created the wave, and you know that happens. Like, no, it doesn't happen in certain places, and now it's happening in certain places. You know, there was a tornado in Brooklyn pulling ACs out windows. That doesn't happen. Nobody's talking about that no more, huh?
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about that no more. But when I saw it, I was just like, no, I'm still talking about it now. Like, no, that doesn't happen in Brooklyn, in the street. No, there's no country. There's no what is it? The tornado has to have warm and cold, something like that.
Warm air and over water.
Air
So as soon as it hits, it starts to dissipate.
I'm in Brooklyn.
You mean that's a hurricane?
No, they said it was a tornado.
Same scenario.
A hurricane.
Mike described was a hurricane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a tornado.
I mean, there was something similar like that happened in Philly about, I guess it was about 10 years ago. I mean, and it ripped trees, like trees that had deep roots, like just ripped them out of the ground. I mean, I think our power was out for like 4 days.
That's the same thing I'm talking about. 10 years ago. Yeah. I think it's the same storm.
Probably the same storm. Yep.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. I wasn't supposed to drive in Brooklyn and see trees out of the concrete. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Wesley, go ahead, bro.
It was just funny because we were talking, I think last week we were talking about how there were complete cities found under the ocean. And, you know, that's where they get the ideas for Atlantis, you know, stuff like that. But there's also mountains in the seas.
Right.
There's mountains covered up in the seas. And they were just talking about how, you know, certain fishermen, they go in and they go down under the mountains, and you got these prehistoric looking fish that are still up under there. They come out, you know, looking weird and crazy, stuff that they never saw before.
Yeah.
Man, creation is amazing.
It is. And they respond, and it's like a sign. It's like, I believe that Yah uses creation to communicate. Like he said it one time. Messiah was like, you can tell when it's going to rain, when the sky is red, you could tell that, but then you can't tell the signs of the times. Like, no, sometimes the earth reveals like some things, like Yah allows certain things to happen outside of what he put into play so we can wake up. And, you know, when we ignore it, we desensitize ourselves to the warnings, you know. Go ahead, Wes. You want to say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to bring up, since we were talking about, you know, the tornadoes and stuff in certain locations that shouldn't be. Recently, this is like 4 months now, in Brazil, there's this place in Brazil that there was an earthquake. It was a magnitude 5, and it was like a big deal. And it wasn't really in the mainstream news. It was just basically in Brazil itself. But where it was, there's no tectonic plate there. Like, you know, they say the tectonic plates rub and there's an earthquake. But where the place it was that originated from, that set it off, it's not sitting on where a tectonic plate meets another. It's supposed to be directly on a tectonic plate. So there's absolutely no explanation why that earthquake happened at that specific location.
Sin.
Scientifically.
Yeah, remember the earthquake at your house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Put me up.
That was
in,
where was that? That was February.
Yeah, it was in February. I woke up because I was rocking and I heard like, I thought it was a train outside.
Yeah, and we were in Myrtle Beach, and we were looking at the the news on Myrtle Beach, right? And it said that there was an earthquake that went through Tennessee, through North Carolina, all the way to Charlotte. And Mike was at my house, and it shook the house. And I was just like,
I thought you came home because I thought you like the house, like it was just like a little rock, and you know, like somebody's walking. We're upstairs, you know, so it's like a buoyant floor. So I thought like somebody was walking up to me. I got up, I was like, the heck, and it sounds like a train outside. I was like, yo, I called you. I was like, yo. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was.
that was crazy. And we were like, that doesn't make sense. Like, we're on top of a mountain. Like, it's like going through the mountains, all from Tennessee all the way to Charlotte. And I was just like, that's crazy. And yeah, the end times, the earthquakes in diverse places. Like, this is not normal. It's not normal. I don't know what normal is to people. Like, oh, this is normal. Like, no, there's no record of this type of stuff happening before.
I think that it's absolutely amazing that Mike thought that the earthquake
Was my
you
Prius
arriving.
driving my Prius driving by the house.
I thought Johnny was walking up the stairs, feet 544.
Yeah, to evict you. That's what I was doing.
Good catch, Rod. Good catch.
That's classic.
My Prius driving up the mountain, shaking the whole mountain. All right.
Try to yell the wrath of Yah.
Oh, no. Jadiel means the unity of Elohim. The unity.
The what?
Unity. The unity of Elohim.
You get really quiet. Your microphone.
All right. So, I mean, we have like 9 verses. I think the rest is informative. I'm going to just read where we are, 21 to 29. And I think this proves Rod's case where it's mentioned in the sons in verse 18, and then he just emphasizes that Ham is the father of Canaan, because the Israelites that's reading this would know what Canaan is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Ham knew he was going to name his son Canaan way before Canaan was born. You know, I think it's prophesied. He could have been born at this time, because I think a lot of times we don't incorporate the time lapse in between. We don't know how long it is from the time that he got off the ark to the time here when he made a vineyard. It takes time to make a vineyard and to grow grapes, it takes time. So he's creating his vineyard. So this is a time spans in between the time that he got off the ark and now that he's making a vineyard in verse 20. So I'm gonna read here. So he probably could have had a son. Canaan could have been born at that time. So it says, and Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brethren outside. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both of their shoulders and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah woke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be Yahuah Elohim of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Come on, guys. 5'9" guy living 900 years? I don't know. No, we don't have to go into that.
We might as well. Part of what we're reading.
No. That's done. When I'm looking at this is what I see. I see Noah was naked in his tent. I know there's different perspectives on this. I don't believe that Ham slept with his mother. I don't believe that. I believe that it's the nakedness was his actual nakedness. He was naked in his tent. And I believe that Ham went in there. It doesn't tell us what Ham was saying to his brothers, but we just know that what he was saying revealed the wickedness that was in Ham's heart, or the unrighteousness that was in Ham. So it's funny because we're looking at Noah like as if Noah is making Ham evil. Noah is not making Ham evil. He's pronouncing the curse that Ham is bringing upon himself. Ham is doing the unrighteous thing. And then when you do the unrighteous thing, Yah curses you. You receive curses. So Noah, being a preacher of righteousness, he also, I believe he was also considered a prophet as well. He's hearing from Yah. He's being given instruction from Yah. So, you know, Ham does this unrighteous act, demonstrating the unrighteousness in his heart. And Noah wakes up and he declares what curse or what character Ham is passing down to his son. And it's funny because he doesn't curse Ham, nor does he curse all of Ham's children, because Ham had a lot of children. Philistines, Mitzrayim, all of these things are Ham's children. But he focuses and says, curse be Canaan. You know, curse be Canaan in verse 25, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And I wanna explain what that is in a second, unless somebody could explain beforehand. I know JP has his hand up. Go ahead, JP.
Oh no, yeah, I was well, the first thing I thought about, I said, man, Noah was like, he must have been, you know, like faded, drunk, you know what I mean? Like to be naked, you know what I'm saying? Just like, you know, because I'm sure that they wear robes and things like that, you know what I mean? Like their garments was different than the way we wear clothes today, right, you know, in America or wherever. But it was just interesting because I was like, man, you know, he already knew about how to make wine too, you know, like just the knowledge. Just there was a lot of knowledge that, like you said, you know, earlier, you were saying how we don't get every detail of what Yahuwah has given to Noah, and like, so I thought about the same thing with that too, you know, like he plants the grapes, and then he plants a vineyard, and then he makes some wine, and then he's like drunk, and then he's uncovered within his tent, like just laid out, you know what I mean? And I think to me, the cold part, I don't know, I kind of see it like a cold part. Ham just walked in there like to tell his dad, hey, breakfast is ready. And bam, he gets hit with, you know, this view. You know what I'm saying? I don't think
that's
that,
not,
I mean, like,
that's
I don't
not
see.
Yah's character. Yah wouldn't have cursed, because Yah has to curse Ham. I can't curse another man and it come from me. Like I can't curse you, JP, and it's coming from me. Like Yah has to do the cursing. You know what I mean? So there's something with Ham because all of his children ended up being like the enemies of Yah's people. So it's not, I don't believe it was just like some innocent, oh, you know, hey, let me breakfast is ready. Cursed is your son. Like that's I can't see Yahuwah or his righteous people being like that. You know that, JP. I can see it if you read it. If you read, and for years I thought Noah was just like, you know, waking up and cursing him, like, and then, you know, that's what I thought. As I was studying, I started to know that the character of Yah is not. It's not just to curse. It's when sin occurs, then curses occur. So then I started to look at him, but it doesn't give us information on him. It just says, it's, you know, let Rod go ahead. And then Wesley, sorry, Wes. Go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, that it says Ham told. And I was looking at that word told in it, to be conspicuous, to give evidence, to inform, to report, to tell, like tattletale. So he was telling, he was making fun of his father. He was bringing shame to him. So it wasn't just that he saw him, he went and tattled about his father's condition. So I think that has to do with, you know, him having evil intent when he went to tell. It's like I see JP do something, and I come to you and tell you rather than say, yo, we need to go to JP and let's pray for him. You know what I mean? or come to him, yo, I caught JP doing this, and I'm laughing and we're making fun of it. It was a situation where the direct contrast was for his two brothers to walk backwards and cover their brother. And this is what you should have done, but you ran and you told us about his condition. So that word "told" kind of opens that up.
I like that. I like that perspective because it gives us a responsibility for one another, like not to go and tell other people, but to do the right thing and try to rectify the situation rather than, let me go over here and let me go over there. Let me, since I'm the one in it, let me help the situation, But we see that Shem and Japheth hears about it and they take it upon themselves to do the right thing, for their father. That's a good insight. That's a good lesson for us to keep in mind and to learn from Ham's mistakes. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, just a confirmation that I too believe that the nakedness it wasn't Ham sleeping with his mother. It was actually the fault, because it gives us context that it was Noah who was the one that was drunk. It was Noah who was the one that was naked. And so you have the context of the event happening, but also an argument that I've heard before was someone say, why would he be cursed if all he saw was his father's nakedness? Because it's like, we're both guys. They're both guys. There's nothing wrong with that. But in scripture, right off the bat is Leviticus 18 verse 6. You're not supposed to uncover the nakedness of your kin. No one. So that's also something that Ham did that was wrong. Hence why that was, again, a very bad situation to be in.
Right. And also, I remember when he told the priest to make trousers and to cover themselves so when they go up to the altar, people can't see their nakedness from under their garments. So he told them to create trousers so they won't see each other's nakedness. So there is an emphasis. We see that in Torah later on, direct commands like you're not supposed to do this. You see what I'm saying? So the Greeks and the Romans, they're the ones that they just was exposed in front of each other. You know what I mean? Like exposed in front of each other in these pools and all of these things. But he's clearly telling us like not to be exposed to one another. Yeah, and I think that we don't have that much information to kind of narrow down what Ham did besides what we see here, him seeing it, him going to his brother, and now Canaan is being cursed, right? Now Canaanites, this is the reason why Canaan is the land of Shem. Canaan is the land of Shem because Canaan was cursed to serve Shem. The Israelites come from Shem. So the Israelites come from Shem, and the land of Canaan was given to the Israelites. So that's why it says here, Canaan was cursed unto his brethren. That's why that land was designated for the Israelites. The land wasn't designated for the Israelites during Exodus. It was designated for the Israelites at this point in time in Genesis chapter 9 because Canaan was cursed to serve Shem, to serve his brethren. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Noah mentioned that Ham was the father of Canaan, so that way they could know why they were given the land of Canaan as an inheritance. I know most people, he gave it to us because, he wanted us to dwell in peace. And no, Canaan was cursed. And Canaan was cursed to serve Shem and Japheth and their descendants. And that's why we have Canaan as the people's, that's why the Israelites received Canaan when Joshua brought them in. Go ahead, JP.
Yeah, one thing I always want to mention, about the Canaanites because I'm, still reading through Joshua. It's been a while, but I'm still reading through it. But it just sparked my understanding right now. like I noticed, you know, and I just pulled up the Canaanites word and how Joshua when they're dividing the land, they're dividing the lands, and then and it's like interesting because it's always like say for instance, I'm just throwing one out there, Joshua 16:10, and they drave not out the Canaanites that dwell in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites until this day and serve under tribute. But it showed in Joshua, like all these accounts, like they couldn't drive them out. So they're like pretty much like, okay, they're going to be there and they're going to be doing this, you know, but like, I don't know, like it kind of matched up with how we said right now is they shall be his servant, you know. And it was just amazing. I was just thinking about that because I was reading. I kept seeing it, and today it just came up right now in my mind as we're reading. As I was reading Joshua, it came up now. I was like, wow, like it's true, you know?
Nice. Yeah, no, definitely that. Joshua 16:10, and they drove not out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt among the Ephraimites unto this day and serve under tribute, meaning that they pay taxes for the land that was taken over, you know. So we do see the serving of the Canaanites to the Israelites, you know, which is good. It's good to cross-reference and to see this historical connection, because I remember a long time ago I didn't even see no connection. I'm hearing names, I'm not connecting it, but now it's like one story. When you put it all together, it's like one story from that point in time all the way to our time, all the way to the future. You know what I mean? So we can't disconnect our time to this whole story either. And I think that's what we do. We don't look at our time as being a part of the prophetic history, but we will see that our time is a part of the prophetic history as well. I'm talking about everything from the, you know, we'll when we go through Daniel, Revelation, after the book of Hebrews, we're going to start with Daniel and then we're going to go to Revelation. All right, brothers and sisters. I'm not used to saying sisters, but all right. So that's our conclusion for Genesis chapter 9, verse 29. Shabbat shalom.